Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters Net podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Joining me today, welcome a special guest. You got Tyler Johnson from his band, Resurrected, Divinity. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good. Probably still waking up, but other than that, I'm all right.
Yeah, you and me both. And how you been recently? What's new?
Uh, Nothing much. I'd say my schedule day to day is probably just work, gym, a little bit of music, church. That's about the routine.
That's pretty good to hear. And I guess,
Yeah.
which part of the world are you hailing from? Are you down there in Georgia?
Yeah, I'm right up in I'm like maybe about a half hour south of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So that's just over the border into Georgia, that part of the world.
But Tyler, I want to welcome you to my podcast right here. And the way it's going to work is I'm going to ask you some questions. And let's get to know you more, both as a musician, but also as the individual as well there too. So, you ready?
Yeah, oh yeah. Appreciate you having me on.
No worries. Thanks for responding too. And I was actually initially worried because I think I'd sent you two messages, and then I had to send it to you on your actual Facebook page. So
Yeah, I honestly hate the way that like Facebook is set up as far as managing pages. It used to be a lot more convenient, and now it's so I respond better on my main account than I do on my page.
ever since that, I want to call it a blackout because that's when some people got logged out of the account. It's been like all downhill. So
Yeah,
it's sad to say at least, but we'll get to rip on the social media giant in just a moment here too. But I guess let's start with this question right here. So who are you, and how did you become a musician?
I'd say I'm a vocalist more than anything probably, and that started. Let's see, I got into heavier music, so to speak, when I was in 10th grade, and at that time, it was mostly like deathcore was a big thing for a lot of like people like really getting like I guess newly into metal at a young age, and I still like some of it. Like I'm not one of those elitist type of guys that I mean my music tastes really all over the place as of the past few years or so, but at the time the seems like the dream for a high school kid getting into that style of music is to, I guess, somehow become a musician. And for me, I wanted to get good at vocals. And so for a long while, I remember back in that time of my life, I would go to like our guest house with like a radio, and I'd play like all the classic deathcore songs that I got into, like Suicide Silence or Whitechapel or whatever, and practice vocals to them, like watch like YouTube tutorials. And so I got into doing that. I'm still like totally stage shy. Like I do it studio only, but but I got into doing all that with that particular genre of music, and then I started making music in 2015 when I was like beginning of my senior year of high school, and I have a lot of regrets about music I made. I had a lot of stuff that I scrubbed from the internet, but yeah, back then I started like an online slam death metal band with a couple of people I'd met from across the globe, and it was called Hepatectomy because that seems to be this trend to make every band name a surgical term or something. But yeah, I guess the rest was history. I've been doing Resurrected Divinity for a little over 5 years now, and yeah, that that sums up a good bit of it at least.
It's up to a point of Resurrected Divinity, but I was kind of the same way with my high school years. I kind of got into that deathcore phase too, like the Suicide Silence, but it was also Chelsea Grin. And then actually a friend of mine introduced me to Whitechapel too. So
yeah, I think Chelsea Grin was probably like the second band that I got into after Suicide Silence.
I always felt bad because I guess the singer Alex at the time, he was really kind of abusing the alcohol and maybe some drugs here and there. So I feel like he was kind of the front man of the group. Not too sure about this new one they got, but it seems like they're kind of like, I just feel like they're still experimenting their music in a way, because they always got some sort of different elements. It's still like a deathcore music style, but there's always like some sort of added element to it. So it's almost like a gothic sort of horror theme now. I think it was like newer album they came out with, something like that.
Yeah, that genre in particular, I find it hard to get into a lot of the newer stuff from the deathcore genre, because I've got kind of that soft spot for that, that MySpace era, as they call it. But there's actually some pretty good underground bands, or technically the whole death metal realm sort of underground. That's such a weird gray area to that whole term, but there's a couple of, I guess you could say, up and coming bands that are sort of reviving that kind of 2008 sound of deathcore, where you got like the metalcore melodies sort of mixed in with like that, like sometimes even like a borderline brutal death metal style. And there's one band in particular that I really like, and they've only released like a short demo called Girl of Glass, and they're bringing back kind of like almost like a mix of really old Suicide Silence and really old Chelsea Grin material. It's kind of what it sounds like, and they've got some real good stuff. And there's I'm trying to think of some other bands that are doing it that I've stumbled across. Like there's a band called Tracheotomy that's sort of bringing back something like that, and a few other bands, but Girl of Glass in particular, they're really doing it right, so to speak.
I'd say my progression was more getting into more of the death metal and then some of the progressive sort of music because of deathcore. So
yeah,
that's kind of how it went for me there too. But I guess while we're on that topic too, I guess who really inspired you in terms of your music, and also the big influence as well?
Well, when you're talking here about like your music taste, how it progressed, that I did sort of, I'd say like the first year when I was getting into that heavier stuff, it was like this is deathcore. Like when I was in like the end of my 10th grade year, I had like this buddy that was like your stereotypical emo kid that showed me Suicide Silence, and then that and for probably a year, all I listened to was deathcore, and then I got into like slam death metal, and slam death metal, I feel like a weird thing I've noticed about that genre is that you've got people who come from like being, it draws in people from like both like a deathcore fan base and like the sort of traditional death metal side of things, like which typically clashes because you've got a lot of elitism and gatekeeping over music tastes, which I'm inclined to say that sometimes that's a good thing. But yeah, I got into slam death metal, and that's still, obviously that's like a big part of my musical influence, because Resurrected Divinity's technically speaking a slam death metal band, but I take a variety of influences from various genres. I'd say over the past 6 years, two bands that have kind of really helped influence my style are Mortician and Disgorge, the Disgorge from Mexico, because there's 3 or 4 different Disgorges, but those couple of bands in particular, mostly Mortician. I got big into Mortician probably about 6 years ago, and that's sort of been like a lingering influence. And then and I find myself, as of past couple of years or so, I'd say maybe about past 4 years, getting influenced by a lot of beatdown as well. And so yeah, that I tend to sort of, mostly in like the riffs I write and whatnot, that sort of comes through. See, there's a variety of other influence. It's all over the place. A lot of times I'll just take influence from whatever I'm currently listening to. Like But your classic slam death metal bands like Devourment, that's always been something that's sort of been caused me to do what I do. And then I, like, lately I'm even listening to some black metal, so there's like a little bit of that'll come in, and I'd say like the central genre, is slam death metal, but there's all kinds of things from all over the place. And I can't give too many details away, but I have been working on a pretty massive album, and when it comes to like big albums, I can't just do like just nothing but slam riffs the whole time. So it's kind of good to have that variety in the in the music style. But yeah, Mortician's a big one, like I said, and Disgorge from Mexico have influenced my sound over the years from time to time, anyway. And other than that, it's hard to name specific bands, but it will mostly be just genres that I'm hooked on, like beatdown and a little bit of black metal, and sometimes even like older deathcore, but I don't go for that in my sound. Like I just don't really care to have my band labeled as deathcore, but I don't have any shame in liking some deathcore, it's just I'm not going for that sound. So usually when I take influence from that genre, it might be like other things than just like the signature use of breakdowns and stuff like that gives the genre its stereotypical sound. But it's all over the place, the influences.
Yeah, I didn't notice the Mortician flag behind you there. Was that a poster?
Yeah, I've had that wall flag for probably, it can be seen a little better that way, but I've had that for maybe about 5 or 6 years, and there's this, I don't know, I've just never gotten rid of it, but there's like this paper mache AK-47 I made when I was like 12 years old that's just been hanging around forever, and I guess I just keep it as some sort of reminder of my childhood creativity or something.
Some of that, otherwise you were obsessed with doing like the whole children's version of War, for instance, or like soldiers and like enemies or something like that. I forget how the game went, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah.
Actually. But speaking of Mortician, mine was more Chainsaw Dismemberment, the one that always starts with the song Stabbed.
Oh. Yeah.
That one actually freaked me out the first time I heard it, because it was playing those. And for those who don't know, the song Stabbed actually plays a little bit of a skit from When a Stranger Calls in the beginning.
Yeah.
There.
So. Oh yeah, that's a phenomenal album. I'd say that's my favorite album from them. They really, in a sense, they were ahead of their time. The beefiness of their sound was definitely something new for the late 90s, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. But it was a nice introduction to like a sort of different sort of metal too, but that was also when new metal was also starting to become big as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I still like a little bit of new metal. I can't get too into Slipknot, but bands like Korn and who else? I'm having a brain. Do what?
Mudvayne.
Yeah, I've once in a while I'll listen to a little bit of Mudvayne. It's been a good minute. For some reason I was thinking of Mushroom Head. Yeah. I think there's only like one song of theirs, but yeah, that everybody, I feel like a lot of people are low key into Limp Bizkit and don't want to admit it, but they're classic.
It's just one of those days. So.
Yeah.
And still with like break stuff. Yeah, that was the big thing about them too. I don't know, Fred Durst, he was a controversial figure back in the day. It seemed like sometimes it was probably a good thing, and sometimes maybe not. Because
yeah,
it was one of those festivals. He was, I want to say indirectly responsible, because I don't think he was kind of promoting it, but I think people kind of start destroying like the whole stage things and everything there too, and kind of start like a little bit of a riot. So it's kind of unfortunate that it gets thrown into your name. So it's kind of a sad thing.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like the industry pulls in some people sometimes who are just maybe a little too tired of everybody, and then that ego gets to them, and that just recklessly starts influencing a lot of people. I could go on and on about my opinions on the music industry, but yeah.
Well, actually, you could probably entwine with this one, but I guess go ahead and talk about Resurrected Divinity. So I guess you started this like when, your senior year, or I guess when did you start it?
Resurrected Divinity actually. So I'm 26. I've been graduated from high school like about 8 years ago, and I got into all like slam death metal and stuff back then, but it was a different phase in my life, and I had like a major shift over the years in like spiritual beliefs, and that's what sort of birthed Resurrected Divinity in 2019. And at this point, I'd been out of high school for about 3 years, and yeah, it started off as, I remember like it almost admittedly it almost started off as a joke, because like, so I mean, I was like a Christian believer at the time when I started this band. I used to be like a really militant atheist, and that was a big influence in starting it. There's some bands like Abated Massive Flesh and Broken Flesh that kind of influenced me to want to make heavier Christian music. But at the same time, in the beginning, it was kind of like me and a buddy were cutting up like let's make, so talking about, let's make the most brain dead type of heavy stuff that's just absolutely belligerent and off the wall, but let's make it have Christian themes. And I don't know why we thought that was silly at the time. I was, I guess, really immature in my faith in the beginning, and but that's kind of how it started. It's in April of 2019, and put out a couple of demos and some EPs, and it was sort of like pretty, I'd never say my stuff is well produced, but it was pretty kind of raw, I guess, and a lot of, sorry, I have indigestion. A lot of my older material I kind of at this point lyrically disagree with, because I was still like a pretty hateful person for a while. I won't even lie, I was. And so a lot of my older lyrical content was probably more focused on criticizing other people's sins than it was on Christ, which, that's a pretty abundant problem among a lot of religious people, unfortunately, myself included. But projects really changed over the years. I've changed over the years, so that in part definitely plays into that. But yeah, it's, in the beginning it was mostly just, the goal was I wanted to make some simple slam death metal type of stuff with Christian themes, and then it went from, because it was really a side project. My main music project at the time was this solo project I called Gut Snagged, that I started in 2017, and another one of those projects where a lot of the old stuff from it I just disowned. I had like really shameful phase of my life where I made, from about 2015 through 2017, I made a lot of like really disgusting music, so to speak, because I mean, it seemed like the end thing in slam death metal, gore grind, and all that, to just make the most perverted, horrible lyrics possible, things like that. And I was really edgy for a time, and then started regretting it, and So my main project when I founded Resurrected Divinity was this solo project, Gut Snagged, and it turned into just being kind of like a slightly mortician, or pretty heavily mortician influenced brutal death metal project where I made songs about horror movies that I liked. And that was pretty much the whole premise of it. But yeah, sorry if I'm on rabbit trails, but Resurrected Divinity was sort of like a side project. I was like, it's like maybe I should start making some music about my, religious beliefs that were developing, and they were pretty immature at that time. I'm still, a lot has changed. I'm still learning a lot, but that sort of went from being a little gospel death metal side project to full blown, like, my main thing over the course of a couple of years or so. I released the first album full length in late 2019. That's during a time where I was going through a lot of emotional stuff, but and I had signed, I think maybe sometime after that full length, which was kind of like a lot of my stuff for first 2 or 3 years of the project had that real like pingy snare kind of gore grind influence style of slam, and yeah, I was signed to like a label called the Bearded Dragon Productions, and still friends with the guy who runs it. He's the drummer for Symphony of Heaven, and then I released a second album in 2021. There's lots of EPs, demos, stuff like that in between. The third album I released last September or August, may have been one of those two, and it was probably I figured out a lot of stuff with mixing that really improved and made my sound beefier, so to speak, and I released it through Coliosis Records, which is a label run by my friend Cole. And this album I went out of my way to make a streaming video for and had it promoted on Slam Worldwide, and it got some pretty good traction, I guess. Like it definitely pulls some people in, it seems like. I would, over the course of the couple months after that, I'd get notifications on Instagram where some metal blogger, it was reviewing the album. There's like the Purgatory channel was one of them, and there's some things like, and it took off. But and now I'm at a point where I'm like, yeah, now that sound is old, like that musician's curse where everything you just released is already outdated. But yeah, I feel like I went on some rabbit trails, but I guess there's a little brief history of Resurrected Divinity.
Could probably write a book about it. Do the whole thing, to be honest. So I can do it. And I guess, is it just strictly you? I guess, who else is part of this project? Are they in and around the States, or are they worldwide?
It's a solo project. It's just me. I had a chest pain. I do I record the vocals. I program the drums. As far as guitars, that's a little secret of mine in a way, but I'll give everyone this much: I don't do any AI crap. So I know we're coming into the age now where there's literally bands that do their music with AI. There's one in particular I heard where it was crazy because it sounded like pretty convincing, very well-produced slam deathcore type stuff, and it was done in AI, which is scary. That's terrifying, actually. I don't feel like we should go that far into it with that type of technology, but I do write my guitar tracks, and I don't record guitar myself. I'll say that much. I write all my tracks. I do all the drum programming. I do the mixing, things like that, the vocals. But yeah, that's the gist of it. I don't do AI. Just throwing that out there. There's none of it's AI since we're coming into that era.
Yeah, you ain't lying, especially now that it's like getting into like the arts and everything else there too. And that was actually the question that I was bringing up originally, because one of the more heavier groups, at least one of the ones I was hearing on the radio, called Deicide, is one of those heavy metal bands that have been around since like the 90s, and they're out of Florida.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of heat because people are assuming they used AI for their newest album cover. So it seems like you're pretty terrified. Are you kind of worried it's going to be like a Terminator sort of scenario with AI?
I don't know. Maybe not that far, but who knows? I mean, it's technology's getting crazy. Like what? I mean, if you think about like just the past couple years, how much AI has evolved. That's let's just think in like the sphere of physical like art, like pictures, things like that. Just in that area alone, I mean, like 2 years ago, I'd say, let's think about 2, maybe 3 years ago, there was that, what was it called? This website was like blowing up. People were using it for memes all the time because you type something in and it would create literally anything, the craziest stuff in pictures, but it was really distorted, kind of gritty, like you could vaguely tell what it was. And then just rapidly, it's now you can type something in and AI will pretty much almost perfectly create that exact image. It evolved really quickly, and I will throw this out there. Like my last full length album, it was an AI album cover. I'll admit that I did do it in that case, and I'll use it maybe as like a tool for like parts of album art I do sometimes. But that's the extent of it. There's some good use for it, I'd say. But like on the album cover to my third album, I wasn't sitting there for hours typing in prompts, waiting on something to pop up. Because if you're going to do that, you might as well just draw it. If you're going to sit around for hours typing in, because there's like, as I call them, AI artists, which I'm not too sure how much the person involved is really the artist in that case, and they'll sit for hours and just type in prompts to try and generate the picture they're thinking of. And and I'm not trying to be hateful or judgmental of people doing that, but I kind of think, if you're going to do that, just draw the damn picture. You have hours of time and you're just typing in a bunch of text. But the album cover to my third album was like, I was just goofing off and I typed something in and it generated it. And I'm like, wow, I accidentally just made a pretty sick looking death metal album cover. And that's how that came to fruition. But yeah, AI art is there's times where I kind of wish I could reverse time back to like a 2000s 90s level of technology, because of how it's just seems like it's on the road to taking people's creativity away. And there's a lot scarier things too, because before long you're going to have like people are going to you've got like on the internet you've got scammers all the time, and like romance scammers are common, like these people that pretend they're like attractive young women looking for a partner, and that's like I block them all the time. I get hit up. But that was one thing I was thinking of recently, because like before long, they're going to be able to just type in prompts and generate convincing photos of the same fictional woman and like it's like those types of scammers are going to, and probably any type of scammer, they're just going to get more convincing because they can. AI is becoming a more effective tool of deception, and that's just one example that just came to mind, because you see it all the time. You'll just be scrolling Facebook suggestions and there'll be 3 or 4 accounts where it's like, yeah, you're definitely not real, and it's scary. I mean, I'm not as much of a hardcore conspiracy theorist as I used to be, but it is definitely one of those things that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, but when I brought up that question, people have always said like it's good for like people who are on like tight budgets. In the case of like indie musicians who really need something like quick and done, so they're not like paying a big fortune for someone to like draw the picture for them.
Yeah.
Waiting a good bit because I don't know how long it sometimes takes artists, maybe a week, give or take, or like how it's going to happen like here and there too. So I can see why. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but that is also scary too. What you brought up with scammers being able to use AI so they can show like a girl flashing her hooters or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's more of an up close pic, really, or maybe it's like one of those selfies that are like real bad or something like that. So I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that has potential to evolve because of this. It's scary, you know. I mean, before long, it's as far as you know, we're in like a very internet dependent age, and you know, a lot of us, myself included, I've got more long distance friends that I've met over the internet than like local friends, and because that's just like we grew up on social media, and with AI technology taking off, before long, it's going to be like, who online can I really trust? How is it going to advance to the point where entire social media accounts are just ran by an AI that can convincingly interact with you and post convincing photographs? Because the AI picture technology is just evolving. Like we're getting less pics with 6 fingers and things like that. And before long, that's just gonna, you know, it'll get more and more deceptive and more effective, and it's kind of disturbing to think about.
I guess someone growing a third arm out of their belly, for instance. I think unfortunately it was a religious pic. It was meant to be one, and then it's like this woman has 3 arms, so it's
Yeah,
kind of a bad thing too. So not good at sending the message there, buddy. So
yeah,
we shall have to see, but tread carefully. That's what we got.
oh yeah, for sure.
Let's jump into the hard topic of COVID here too. So I guess what were you doing before COVID happened, and I guess how bad did COVID impact you, family, and music wise?
Music not that much because my music is just typically, you know, I just do it at home. I've never done a live show. Like I say, like I confess, I'm nervous about that kind of stuff. I've not broken into having to perform in front of people. So like all of my music's always just been done alone at home. So didn't really affect that in any way, I'd say. But life, yeah, I mean, yeah, it got hard. It Fortunately, work actually stayed really busy because I do like general remodeling, things like that for the family business, and we had some customers that had like months of work lined up, and they were going to have lots of downtime working from home, and that worked out perfectly. Um, like before COVID, you know, I guess um, I could change the world, but not permanently. I'd say I think we're back to like as far as how society is. A lot of people are just life seems to just be going on as if COVID didn't happen. and at least in my part of the world, that's how it looks. It's kind of, you know, being accepted as like just another thing like the flu that you just got to watch out for. If you're tested and you have it, stay home from work. Don't go anywhere, and you know, like quarantine yourself. You know, same with the flu, same with all that other stuff. But I mean, for a good while, it really impacted some things. I mean, it was weird for me because I was doing probably more traveling during, and you know, like don't want to get canceled for this because like it's like, hey, this guy's a super spreader, but I was probably doing more traveling like during COVID times, like not during like the real early months of it when it first hit in like March of 2020, but and we were playing it safe, you know, and just my dad, he runs a fan club for the Miami Dolphins, and he likes having me travel with him. He don't like to travel alone, and it's a fan club that really took off. Actually, I'd say COVID year, like that football season after COVID hit, was when it really started taking off. So I'd travel with him and go to games with him and stuff, and in Miami and even abroad when the Dolphins would play abroad, and he'd throw events and have like a pretty massive turnout, and so there's a lot of traveling for those reasons, that because flight tickets got cheaper. A lot of people weren't traveling, and so yeah, I'd say probably the most that impacted me was that some of the lockdown stuff had me depressed for a while. I went through kind of like not long after the beginning of COVID, I went through sort of a breakup, but it was something stupid. Like I look back in time, I'm like, Tyler, you were an idiot. But because I was in like a long distance relationship, and to each their own, but I think those are dumb. And so COVID kind of, I guess COVID in a way like ruined that, because there was travel was hard, but it was a blessing because I shouldn't have been in the situation. Long distance relationships are dumb. Don't do them. There's my life lesson for the audience. But yeah, that's probably lockdowns, things like that had me depressed. But other than that, I can't think of too much that it really changed for me personally.
That's good to hear. And I guess this Dolphins fan club, I guess, how come he didn't end up with the Atlanta Falcons?
Living in Georgia, yeah. He was from. My dad was born in North Carolina. He talks about it way too much, admittedly. I love him, but I'm not like the football type of guy. And like the really hardcore fans that like really freak out about it, like make me like it even less. And that's neat. Like the club he started is like they do a lot of charity, and it's like he works like it got to a point where he actually works with the Dolphins organization, and he grew up in North Carolina, and I think the Dolphins and the Redskins were probably like the two teams that were really big there. But when he was a kid, the Dolphins were they had like an undefeated season. They were a huge deal, and they're still, I think, the only NFL team to have an undefeated season. But that's about as far as my NFL knowledge goes. I think that's how he became a fan, was something along those lines. He said the whole story probably like a million times over, but that's my bad habit is I hear something to do with football and my brain shuts off.
This is one of those things. Just nod when you're supposed to nod and be like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool," and like just throw in the lines right there and there. Yeah. Yeah,
pretty much.
It was the 72 Dolphins. That's who it was that went undefeated that year. So it's a pretty good choice. But actually, it would sound fun to just travel around there too. I guess you just enjoy to travel. I guess do you try to interact with anybody whenever you go into these clubs?
Yeah, I've made a lot of good friends through it. It took a while for people to realize that I was not going to cave into being a football fan, but I mean, like, it's been pretty cool. We've flown out to California a few times, and the first time we went, I didn't think I'd like California because like living down here in the South, there's a lot of stereotypes about California and Californians. But we got out there, and this is sort of like South California, San Bernardino, and one of my dad's good friends, who I consider a friend too, great guy. He runs a fan club for the Miami Dolphins that's out there. There's a lot of the world of like NFL fandom is kind of neat in a way. At the same time, I feel like, I mean, this is just me. I don't want anybody to think I'm like judgy, but at the same time, I feel like people get too into it. There's a lot more important things, but I mean, that's neat. Like there's some, the guy I was talking about out there, he runs a fan club for like pretty much for Southern Californians in general that are Miami Dolphins fans. and he lives in San Bernardino. So we flown out there a few times, and it's actually really nice. I never lived there because of the economy, but it's the cost of living, all that. But it's real nice. We've been up there a few times. I've been actually because being my father's +1, I've been in like the inner circle of NFL drafts a couple times, and like been on TV. Look at me, I'm a big star. Just kidding, but yeah, like we've been in like the NFL drafts and I've been a couple times in the inner circle, and which is that front and center that they always show like on TV where all like the diehard fans that got special tickets go and all that, and it's neat. It's not my thing, but at the same time, I kind of enjoyed the travels. It's cool to go out and see all this stuff. But yeah, that's that.
I'd say at least being part of the drafts. I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool too. Just the fact that you go out, I guess backstage. Was that what it was, or did you get up close?
Yeah, it's like yeah, like right. I don't even know how to explain it. It's football talk is difficult for me, but it's like just sort of the front. Like they got the main stage for the draft, and the inner circle is like always right in front or around the main stage, and that's where the people that get there, they get either special invitations for doing stuff like what my dad does, like running a big fan club for the Dolphins. They'll get like special invitations, people like that, and I've gone because I was his +1. It's been some interesting memories. I kind of just sit there, kind of keep to myself because I'm not the football guy, but yeah, it's an experience for sure. I guess something to knock off a bucket list, and has its fun times for sure.
I'd say in the Deep South, football is pretty much the next big thing next to religion. So I mean, you can see why.
Yeah. The church I used to go to, like you couldn't hear a sermon without some college football talk. So yeah.
Well, I think maybe more so nowadays since you guys were in the big championship games. So I mean, you had the BCS championship games. You were back-to-back champs for those 2 years.
Oh
Recently,
yeah.
Michigan won it. So I mean, hey, the town be jumping. So.
For sure.
It's funny we got off the topic of COVID and started talking about football, so that's all good.
It happens. I've been on a couple podcasts, and you think it'd be all straightforward, and then things just go rabbit trails.
Don't tell me how it goes, but this is kind of like a conversation. That's what podcasts are meant to be. But
yeah, for sure.
But just to get back into it, I guess, did you have any brushes with COVID? Were you and your family okay?
Yeah, that didn't. I mean, I'd caught it, I think, once, and I was all right. It's yeah. There's nothing much to it with me in my case, I guess. I mean, I know like some people it hit pretty hard. Me, it's not one of those things I think of often, I guess, but I know with some folks that it definitely, if there's fatalities, even things like that. It was a major time politically too, because it definitely caused a major divide as far as that. Because there's some people, and I try not to, I try to avoid politics completely these days. I'm probably maybe about 90% successful, but there, one part of the country seemed to believe like no big deal, treat it like the flu. The other part of the country thought it was a doomsday virus that was going to kill everybody. So those two groups were clashing, and I noticed a lot of that for a while. And yeah, that's probably a good thing to bring up, is that it like the social impact it had, because there's some people that were just really hateful to each other over the response to it, and it's kind of like, I thought it was just dumb. People like finding reasons to hate each other, and it's kind of, I've tried to get to a point now, like, just not to be like that, not to feed into it. There was like, you had really hardcore people on both sides of that fence. Like one side would like think that if you got the jab that you were like the biggest sissy on the planet, and then the other side thinks that if you didn't get the jab, you were just a monster that wanted to kill everybody by super spreading COVID. So I mean, we had the social response, the way society responded to it, the way friend groups were kind of like at each other, things like that was definitely something that was big for a while, and it died down like all things like that do. But yeah, that's probably the most impact I got from it, was probably in that area, just witnessing a lot of social turmoil over that and the politics around it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So I have to hope the worst is behind us at this point here too. But good to see you doing well there, Tyler. So blessings to you and your family.
Yeah, and to you as well.
Okay. I guess let's go and jump into the gear that you use. So I guess is this the room where the magic happens?
Yeah, mostly. Sometimes when I record vocals, I'll go to the guest house where nobody's at. So, because I don't live alone, and I don't want to bother the family, and it's like when they're trying to enjoy a nice day, and I'm back here in my room screaming into a mic or whatever. But yeah, a lot of times I'll go to the guest house. I've got actually, and I keep it covered, to protect it. But I have actually right here next to me is my mic. It's a MXL 990. It's the same mic I've been using since I was in high school, and it's not let me down. It's been really reliable. It's a simple USB hookup to the laptop or computer I'm using. Like I said, I program my drums, so that I've sort of mastered doing that through FL Studio. I used to use a drum machine called Hydrogen until it just started messing up, but I kind of figured out like the most effective method for programming through FL Studio, and so now I just use it and import whatever drum samples I want to use. I used admittedly, not that hopefully this don't ruin my music for anybody that likes it, but I admittedly used the same kick drum sample for like the past 8 years until recently. Like I finally switched it to a different one I found that I liked. Resurrected Divinity for like a phase of about 3 years or so. I had like the same sort of like hitting an anvil with a stick type of snare sound. And that was, the drum samples I used. And then the guitar, that's, like I said, I got a method for it. Typically don't talk about, but like I'll say this, I do write the tracks, so to speak. I do write the guitar. It's all composed by me, but the method of how the final guitar tracks themselves get done, I guess I'll leave that to people's imagination. I got a technique, and it doesn't involve AI. I'll say that much.
I'm gonna say tiptoeing around it too. That's what I'm gonna say, because
yeah,
or at least like with drum loops, just for example, or anything like guitar loops, anything like that. So, is that also what you kind of use too, with like what FL Studio gives you?
Like I don't like you're talking like sort of pre-existing patterns and things like that they give you to use.
So it starts at maybe just in like 4/4, then it will repeat once it reaches like the end of it. That's what loops are, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like my music terminology is like very poor. I've just been winging it like the way I do for years, and started off real sloppy and then sort of perfecting it. But um, yeah, I'm not well studied in like music theory or anything like that. I I don't even know anything about time signatures, to be honest. Like, I'm probably like, I've literally just been winging it for years. Like, I confess. And
I mean, hey,
just,
it works. It works. That's all that matters in the end. So yeah.
yeah, I got a buddy and he's well knowledge and all. May have heard of his solo project is Glae, GLAE. That's like a Christian deathcore project. He's on the same label that I'm on, and like he knows all this stuff. He's real professional, and I'll talk to him and he's like, well, I mean, if the final product turns out to be like something listenable that people enjoy, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how, like, I guess how stupid I am to music terminology and techniques, and I don't know the proper terminology, but you know what I mean.
Hey, that's all that matters, Dan. Yeah, he'd be right too. So that's
Yeah.
all to him. So. But I guess in terms of like creating a song, I guess how do you normally go about it? Do you write the lyrics first and then music, or vice versa?
It varies. Sometimes I'll have like some. I'll get the idea for like a song concept and lyrics, and I'll start writing that first, and then uh, I'll start working on the music. Sometimes I used to do the drum tracks first, and then like do the guitars over them. And since then, it's kind of reversed. And for some reason, that's just worked more effectively for me. But because like I don't know, getting like the song structure, all the riffs and all that just laid out, and then I don't know, something about that process, and then adding the drums and like writing them to it. Somehow it just has worked out better for me than vice versa. But as far as the order of song and lyrics and vocals, that it varies. It really does. A lot of times I'll think of the topic I want to make the song about, and I'll start writing the lyrics as they come to me. And then other times I'll write the song first, then the lyrics. And there's times where my creative ability is like just flared up for a period of time, and I'll get ideas that are just like, wow, that's great, and like just like that, and I'll write out a whole song. I'll go record, and I might even write the lyrics like on the spot as I'm recording vocals, but that's rare. I mean that. Oh, pardon me. That doesn't happen often, but yeah, it varies. It or varies, however you want to pronounce it.
I was gonna say varies.
Yeah.
No, I think most people are correct to say varies, but it's whatever, really. I know what you mean. So
Yeah, tomato.
Me, I like that too. But I guess I think you mentioned earlier about what your lyrics can delve into. So I guess do you still kind of go with that in terms of like saying some sort of Christian message?
Yeah. So I guess it's sort of delving into like my personal background again, which hopefully I'll try to limit the rabbit trails. My mind's all over the place. But I grew up, I guess, agnostic. And in high school I was very like militantly atheist. There's a handful of friends that knew me back then. I was like I hated Christians. I was a burned down churches type of guy for sure. And this was a high school phase, and once it went away after high school, in a lot of ways I remained the same person for years, but I sort of tamed down on that. And I can remember like late 2016, 2017, I kind of contemplate like, well, there's got to be a creator, and I should stop hating on him Then, and then, like, sort of toyed with that idea for a while. So I went from being that militant atheist, and I think the whole reason that I was that, like, extreme for a while was that, just growing up in the Bible Belt, if you didn't submit yourself to some country bumpkin church, you kind of, there's people that have something against you for it. And, I remember, like, as a kid, I had, like, a neighbor, and the weird thing is he was probably legitimately trying to, he could have been legitimately trying to warn us or something, but either way, it's just something you don't just tell somebody. But I had a neighbor tell, like, I think one of my parents that if we don't go to church, we're going to go to hell, things like that. And so, like, when you're not even a believer and people are telling you this, that's not going to bring you closer. And so over the years, I sort of went just full-blown agnostic. Then high school came along, and as I got into, like, the music that we were talking about, as I got into that style of heavier music, all of a sudden, to, like, all, like, the local Bible Belt type of church crowd, you're like, oh, that guy's satanic, and, like, you get kind of weird looks, and that made me even more hateful to Christians. And the problem was that I saw that as all Christianity had to offer. And the same goes for a lot of, like, people that become militant atheists. They just see that. They see, like, there's, and not right, trying to totally rag the Roman Catholics, because I got a lot of Roman Catholic buddies that are great people, but they'll see, like, the scandals in the Roman Catholic Church, and they'll see, like, how a lot of people in, like, cliquey Bible Belt crowds behave, and it pushes them into atheism. It's a great big atheist factory. And so I was like that for a while, and then I think it took till, like, early 2018, I was going through something, and I'd calmed down from that, and still had my issues with hate and things like that, hate and lust and all these vices. And but I decided, heck, why don't I try praying? And I reached out, and somehow, not long after that, came to this personal realization that Christ is God. And for years, like, the next year after that was when I formed Resurrected Divinity. But for years, I was sort of, like, trying to figure it out on my own, not going to church, because because of what, like, the same thing I was talking about, what I saw growing up. I didn't want to be a part of that. And so didn't go to church for a long time. And then, and I'd say, like, probably some people that really helped me out early on when I became a believer, I have an aunt and uncle in North Carolina that are Baptists, and they were always just real easy and real comfortable to talk about that without any kind of harsh judgment, and so that helped me along. And I started last year. This is where it starts getting deeper. So, everyone hold on, I guess. But last year, I had some friends, a friend of my sister's that my sister's known forever. She knew of, like, my past as a, like, militantly anti-Christian, and where I was headed, and she invited me to a Baptist church. And I didn't really, even though, like, a lot of close relatives that I really got along with on the subject of spirituality were Baptists, I didn't really agree a lot with a lot of what Baptists said, like the whole, like, once saved, always saved idea that salvation is like a contract where you can just confess that you love Jesus at, like, the age of 12, and then for the rest of your life, no matter what kind of horrible things you do, your salvation is totally secure. I didn't, not trying to mock anybody, but I just didn't believe that. But I went anyway, and people were nice. People were really nice. I keep in touch with a couple of them. There's a lot of great people. The pastor was nice, but didn't feel like what I was looking for. And I've had this years-long fascination with the Eastern Orthodox Church. And so when I started realizing that a Baptist church really wasn't for me, I started looking into that in December. And I'm sorry about like this totally long life story, but there's the reason I bring it up is because like a lot of my beliefs have evolved and changed heavily, even since becoming a believer of Christ, as far as who Christ is, how God works, how the church works, the history of the church. All these things change so much, and I started looking into the Eastern Orthodox Church, like taking it more seriously and not just like something that, hey, this is I thought was cool. And I found, and it's been a crazy past few months for me because I found a Eastern Orthodox church in Chattanooga, which like I live about a half hour south of Chattanooga, so I'm in Georgia, but barely. But I found this place, and for the past couple of weeks I was going to the Baptist church. I was so nervous because I was kind of like on the side. Even though I liked the people, I did not feel like it was the right spiritual home for me as in my like longing for Christ. And I was sort of secretly on the side researching local Orthodox churches, talking to Orthodox Christians online about like the faith, and I just had this bad anxiety for a couple of weeks, like what's going to happen, what's the state of my soul like, because I don't believe in once saved always saved, like, which is a common Southern Baptist idea, and all these things just concerning me. And I finally, and like the anxiety of like checking out this church I was looking into, because I didn't know anybody there, and I suck. I believe, even though I can ramble on and talk forever, it's something I got to work on. I honestly suck at socializing and meeting new people sometimes, and so that was just building up, and the anxiety and irritability, the restlessness. And then I finally went on a Saturday evening because this Orthodox parish, as well as a lot of others, they'll have like services on other days, like Saturdays, where they do. And I still can't for the life of me tell you everything that's going on, because it's the wildest. It's like if you were to go to like an Orthodox service, it's the weirdest thing you'll ever see, but it's amazing. And I finally went to what they call like Great Vespers on Saturday evening, and like stressed through the roof for like a couple weeks, and it went away in an instant. And it was the weirdest feeling ever. It I knew it was God, because it's like, it's just like the peace of God transcends all understanding. That was exactly what I felt. And I've been going there for months. I'm actually about to, tomorrow, apparently I'm becoming a catechumen, which is like the stage of engagement into the church, which can take anywhere from a year or longer, like if you're not, because you got to learn a lot of things, and it's hard to explain. I don't want to say a bunch of stuff about the Orthodox faith, like hardly knowing anything yet. It's something I have great reverence for. I don't want to like dog any other Christian denominations, but I'm a firm believer, from what I've witnessed over the past few months, that it is the original church of the apostles, because of its history, because of the record of the lives of the saints. There's been so many taboos that I had to crush as like a Christian living in the Bible Belt, like as far as like intercessory prayer, like, like you can't pray to saints, you can't ask Mary for prayers, things like that. But there's, and I had to, things like that. It's just like asking a friend on earth for prayers, because those who are dead in Christ are still alive. But that's just been, yeah, I feel like I'm yakking too much about it. Like, that's a subject I gotta be careful on, especially since I still know so little about the Orthodox faith. But I can say this much: it's been the most intense, unfathomable spiritual experience I've ever had. And it's like before, And then it's going to influence my lyrics in the future. I've been having a lot of troubles writing my fourth album because when I started writing my fourth album, I still held a lot of my former beliefs. And now, like, I've been in something that's been eye-opening beyond all comprehension for the past few months. It's given me a greater peace. I'm nowhere near as hateful as I used to be. I overcame, like, literally since the first day I went, I've refrained from a certain something that's been a horrible addiction of mine since I was 12 years old that I do not know if I should get into or not. But, well, heck with it. It was pornography. I struggled with that since I was 12 years old, and something happened and I never thought I'd get past it. Like, it became something very oppressive in my life. And since the first day I went to this place, I feel like, and like I give God all the credit, I feel like I got rewarded with a restraint, and it's like I quit it cold turkey. Never thought I could. Like, I felt something that was life-changing. There's been more peace. There's been more, I don't know, it's like beforehand, my concept of Christianity, of the Church of God, was sort of boxed into my own personal limitations on what I myself could come up with about it. And now it's sort of like there's just this incomprehensible, like, just, how do I word it? This and just crazy connection to the kingdom of heaven that's just has no limits. There's no borders that I could come to. There's no walls. It's like, beforehand, I thought that, I was just cut off from something that has been available the whole time. And it's magnificent. It's hard to put to words. I'll use too many words if I try to, and then I won't make sense.
Yeah, something like that. But that is actually a pretty extensive story. And
yeah.
Good to see you are doing well in made. So, and normally I would say, in terms of lyric content, people do use like real world experiences that they've perhaps gone through. I think normally the one I always like to reference, I'm sure there's plenty of others, was Stay, for instance. So, even though they're not necessarily metal, it's more like your alternative rock, for instance, but still.
I like them. My taste's all over the place. Stain's pretty good. I've been in a Creed fix lately too, so.
I'll say, are you one of those ones like with arms wide open or Take Me Higher?
Yeah, Creed's good.
Yeah, because they're still going too. Did they do something recently? Because I was hearing something on the radio, like one of the radio DJs just said like, I fucking love Creed now, because I didn't hear like what else it was like they said or something they perhaps were discussing or doing. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing. Did you hear anything?
Oh, as far as I know, I think I want to say they've been reformed for years. I know there was a lot of controversy with the singer because he went kind of off the deep end for years. But I mean, the way I see it, like, I try not to judge, especially when you're in the position of like a big deal rock and roll star. You're gonna be bombarded with all kinds of like just bad influences left and right, nonstop, and more often than not, these guys go off the deep end and do some crazy stuff that destroys their life. But I heard the guy, what's his name? I think it's like Scott Stapp. I want to say that's the singer of Creed, but I think they like reformed or something. Yeah, I think it may have even been a few years ago, but I don't know what all is going on. I don't keep up with things as much these days. I really don't.
I'd say you may both, but maybe this could be one of your challenges, because that leads into this next question, I guess. What challenges, I guess, outside being stage fright and guess anything else really? I guess what challenges do you face these days being a musician?
Challenges are probably just getting around to composing to what I want to make, because I mean I'm just busy all the time lately, and now more than ever. Like I've just like going back to the subject of the church life without trying to go too deep into it. It's made me a lot busier in a lot of good ways than I've ever been. You know, I've made I found a place where like they're literally family to me, you know, and so I've got a lot of friends, and I'm doing a lot more stuff on the side than I used to. I mean, prior to like going to this parish that I go to, I had a lot more free time, and so like I'd be working on music a lot more, putting out music quicker, and now it's sort of like a couple times a week I'll get around to writing some stuff, and it's a lot slower in that sense. Like that's probably the biggest challenge as a musician lately, is just getting around to composing, getting around to doing the music. Now, if you're thinking like the biggest challenge in the process of making music, that's probably mixing the vocals. For some reason, that's really annoying to me. Can never get it right.
Yeah, I imagine too. I tell you, it's another language for me when you're trying to study mixing and mastering there too. So
yeah, it
seems like YouTube, at least I like to call it YouTube University, seems like the spot to be where you want to study really sort of anything really. So I can see why. And I guess in terms of social media, and I guess also streaming, I guess where's your music at? And I guess I was gonna say, what social media do you use for personal and I guess music wise?
Well, I'm on Bandcamp, I'm on Spotify, YouTube Music. For a couple of years I've gone through DistroKid, which gets it on just about everything, and that's what the label I'm on now also uses. And I guess like a lot of people use DistroKid because I mean it'll pretty much do the work for you once you put in all the data for the album you're wanting streamed, and they'll get it on everything from Spotify to Pandora to iHeartRadio, YouTube. Not Bandcamp. Bandcamp you gotta do yourself, but yeah, my stuff's on Bandcamp. I've got like my last couple releases on there. I set the price extremely high just so that people would go buy it from the label's Bandcamp instead. Because I mean, it's just more efficient to split funds that way. I had a couple people complaining. It's like, why is your latest 2-track EP $777? And I'm like, because just go buy it from the label's Bandcamp. I put it up on my own just because I like using my own personal Bandcamp as kind of like I like to still keep all of my music on there. Call it an autistic quirk or something. I have no clue. But there's I'm on most platforms, I'd say. Social media, I use my Instagram is actually both personal and music. I combine it. It's Resurrected Divinity Official is the Instagram, but I'll use it for both just my everyday life and sharing music. I post a lot of stuff about like the Orthodox faith over the past few months on there, which, you know, is my faith, what I'm planning to spend the rest of my life in, which is a major commitment. I usually don't commit to stuff that easy, but yeah, on Facebook, I use a personal Facebook account, but then I also have one for the band, and pretty much just social media wise, I just use Instagram and Facebook for Resurrected Divinity. I don't care to get into Twitter and all of that. But yeah, got a Facebook page. I post some stupid memes on there a lot of times, probably more often than not than somebody that's trying to be professional about music. But yeah, that's a gist of it, really. I mean, you can find me on pretty much any music platform you can think of, just because we go through DistroKid. But social media, Instagram and Facebook. That's about it.
I strongly recommend you join Band Together. Have you heard of that group on Facebook?
The what now?
There's a Facebook group called Band Together, and that's where all the indie musicians tend to come together. That's where we talk about some new releases we brought out or any other sort of topics. And we just support each other. So strongly recommend it if you're trying to look for expanding your audience or sharing your music. So strongly recommended.
I'll definitely think into that. Yeah, I am on social media definitely for more often than I should be. I'm trying to limit that because it is a terrible influence. It can be a blessing and a curse. I love going on there, seeing how all my friends and family are doing, but then I'm pretty quick to be tempted into controversy and arguing and all manner of other things. So trying to limit that. Like I pray before I get on my computer sometimes. I'm like, let me not do something stupid today, because I know I probably will.
Hopefully nothing like that, but yeah. I do recommend it. It's a good group to have. I've been a part of it for a little over a year now, so it's good people on there too. Plus, it's also how I was able to find other musicians to interview as well. So
yeah, that sounds cool.
I was leading to this one here, I guess. In terms of advice, like I say, given the story you've kind of been sharing so far about your life from secular into, I guess, Orthodox Christianity in this case, I guess, so what advice would you give to other musicians in terms of like perseverance or anything like that?
Gosh, I'm terrible at advice. But well, let's see. You think you're talking like this include like stuff like with like music promotion, advice on that, things like that?
I guess anything really. No hands barred or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Well, I think let's see. Truth be told, I suck at those things. I've tried all kinds of promotion, and sometimes it works. Like sometimes I guess it's good to put a little money aside for promotion. It worked out. It worked out when I streamed got my last album streamed through Slam Worldwide. It helped a bit, but as far as pulling in an audience, I'm probably a bad guy for that kind of advice, just because I am like a gritty underground slam death metal band, and you can only get so big of an audience when you do stuff like that. A lot of people, I mean, even your average, like a lot of even, let's say, most death metal fans are not into that style. It's and it's an acquired taste. It's gritty. A lot of times the production is just subpar. It's ridiculous. It sounds like total caveman type of stuff. For one, here's a good one. And it's probably hard for stuff because I know like we all want to make money. We all want to, grow a massive fan base, but don't be in it for that. Be in it because you've got a passion for it, and a lot of people I know they don't have that problem, especially in underground metal. If you're trying to start a hip hop career, a lot of times that thing comes up because it's the end thing, But underground metal, it's easier just to do it because you're passionate about it. But that's probably some super basic advice, probably about as helpful as don't put your hand on a hot stove. But yeah, that is an important thing. Do music just because you like doing it. Don't get caught up or don't get irritated because you're stuck at only a few hundred fans or whatever, or even a few dozen fans. Be grateful for them. Be grateful. Like I've made some pretty good fans, or pretty good fans. See, now I sound like an egotistical idiot. I've made some pretty good friends through pulling in fans. That's what I'm trying to say. I've made one of my really good buddies I met because I make the music I make, because he lives out in Southern California. I actually was fortunate enough to get to meet him and hang out with him for a day last year, because I was traveling out there with my dad for a football game, and he's one of my best friends now. And I met this guy through making music because he's a Christian, and he was on the hunt for Christian slam death metal bands, and found what I do, and we hit it off. We're real close friends, and do it in part for stuff like that, for like the wholesome side of it, for the connections, for the for what's that line? It's about the friends we made along the way. I forget what that's from. but I mean, yeah, like that's, do it for that. Don't even in underground metal, people get egos. They draw in a big fan base. It gets to them. Don't do it for that. Like, that's just, make the music because you like making it. Like, make something that you yourself will even enjoy listening to, which that is hard. It's like making music, that is like one of the hardest things ever. Like, you think you got something good, and then like you listen to it later and you're like, this sucks. I need to change this. Like, make that your goal. Make, like, just to connecting with people. That's a good goal. Because if you don't get big-headed about it and be like, yeah, I'm the man, I'm drawing in all these fan bases, there's good-looking girls that like my music too, or whatever. That's the wrong reason. Don't do it for money. Like, I like making like a little bit of money, now and then. It's good to bring in some stuff, and I'm grateful for it. I try to put it to good use. But the connections is great. I mean, I've made some good friends in other bands because of what I do, and Zach from Glay, but I've known him since before. I've known him for years. There's Involuntary Mortifications, really good. They got like sort of like a kind of like a blend of slam and like deathcore or something like that. And their frontman Connor is a great guy. He's been becoming a pretty good friend of mine. He likes to rag me because he's Roman Catholic and I went the Eastern Orthodox route, and there's a bit of history to that whole debacle. But a great guy. I love him to death. But Chris from Hard Look. I'm just doing like a shout out session now. But there's a lot of real cool people. Seth from Mangled Carpenter, I don't know if you've heard of them. He runs the label I'm on, Broken Curfew Records. Sean from Secretion, they're an old school Christian death metal band that's finally making new stuff after like 20 years of nothing, and he's great band. Secretion, great, wild name for a Christian band. But I don't know the whole history. They may have not been intending to make Christian music at first, but Sean is a great dude. But yeah, make music for those good and wholesome reasons. And once again, pardon me for my rabbit trails and my scattered brain. But yeah, don't do it for the money. Don't do it to draw in fans. Be selfless about it.
Yeah, pretty much a longer version or a short version near the end right there, so I can see why. And
yeah,
I can have
like
say
I said,
Secretion.
I'm scatterbrained.
You're good. I would say Secretion, though. I think would be a day to think like, oh man, that's a death metal band. Let's go check it out. And then check it out. It's got Christian lyrics in it too. So I'm thinking like, what the hell, or something like that. That's probably what some people would say. So,
Yeah.
But Los Angeles to those guys nonetheless there too. So from one Roman Catholic to an Eastern Orthodox. So it's all good.
Oh, you're Roman Catholic?
I say Irish Catholic, but it's kind of the same thing, really, when you think about it.
I mean, like, I don't know. I love everybody. I ain't got no hate. You're not supposed to if you're an Orthodox Christian. If you're an
I'd say
Orthodox,
really, technically, any religious person really shouldn't have any hate, but unfortunately, that's not how it goes. So.
Unfortunately, yeah. And I mean, I'm guilty of that. I've had a lot of bigoted hatred in my past. I'll admit to it, and it's probably partially because I was lost and angry about it. But yeah, we all have our flaws.
Life goes on, yeah. It's like,
yeah.
Right. So Tyler, we briefed through the questions here pretty good. So here, let's jump into the fun ones. Ready?
Yeah.
Right. So we'll start with the first one right here, I guess. So what would you say is your favorite food?
That's tough, but I'm definitely a seafood guy. Clams, mussels, crabs, all that stuff. Fish, salmon, calamari, oysters, shellfish in general. Seafood's probably my favorite realm of food. I also like a good medium rare steak every once in a while. It's things like that. Seafood's probably, there's nothing specific, really. It's hard to pick a specific, but my favorite food group, I guess, is seafood.
Fair enough. Actually, when I was in Europe, they actually did do like seafood pastas, but for like the shrimp, they didn't have it peeled, so you had to get your hands dirty in order to like peel the shrimp so you can get to the meat and everything too. So if you ever go down to Europe, whether it's Italy or wherever else, gracious, if you're about to get your hands dirty with a little seafood pasta. So.
Oh yeah, that's why it tends to be pretty messy, but it's worth it.
I don't know. I wasn't used to it. That's the thing. So it wasn't really so much for me. So to each his own too. So fair enough.
Yeah.
And for the next one, I guess what would you consider is your favorite movie?
That's tough. That's changed probably so much over the years. I don't watch movies as often as I used to. I was definitely really into horror for a long time. I've still got like a collection of a lot of figurines over here. Like I'm actually looking at them. They're on my shelf. I'd say like my favorite genre for a while was like 70s and 80s slashers. But I don't know. I've just not been as much of a movie watcher anymore. So it's just a tough question. When I was really into horror movies, I probably would have told people My Bloody Valentine. It's like, because I was real into campy slashers, and that one's a classic. But now it's tough. I think the last movie that I watched was several weeks ago, and it was great. And it's actually a movie I've been meaning to watch it again because I was watching it with a buddy. And sometimes when I'm watching with a friend, I don't focus on it as much as I should. That's a movie called Man of God. That's about Saint Nectarios, who and it's pretty accurately based on a true story about a bishop, and he is a canonized saint in the Orthodox Church who was ostracized from and slandered in the late 1800s for a lot of things that he didn't do. Late 1800s, early 1900s, that area. He was I'm trying not to mess up the details, but this just shows how poorly my attention to detail can be. But he's a wonderful human being. He was a bishop, and he was like in North Africa. I want to say Egypt, Alexandria, somewhere like that kind of, but he got slandered because apparently some other like bishops were jealous of him, and they had the patriarch of the Greek church at the time convinced that Nectarios was trying to overthrow him, which was just a lie. And it's a great movie, and it's, like I said, pretty accurately based on a true story. And it just showed like his life, and like he was just a wonderful, very humble man. This is, by the way, a complete contrast to where I previously was talking about my favorite slasher films. Now we're talking about a wonderful, God-fearing human being, and not like a psychotic killer that hacks up horny teenagers. But
yeah, up for barbecue, as the poster behind you says. Yeah.
Oh yeah, hacked up for barbecue. Mortician album, but yeah, that was probably, I think that was the last movie I watched, and it's been a few weeks, and it was a great film about it's, I guess you could consider it a drama, because there's definitely a lot of that in there. There's definitely a lot that he went through with slander. He was all kinds of things. It's it's in the clear now, because now he's a canonized saint. So once you get to that point, especially as strict as the Orthodox Church is about canonizing saints, it kind of takes a lot for them to be sure about that type of decision. But good movie about a wonderful man who I personally believe is in paradise now and willing to pray for me in every need I might have. And definitely recommend to anyone that's a religious person. But gosh, that's a hard question, though. I'll tell you. Favorite movie, I've probably never been able to narrow that down to one, because I'm kind of a cinephile, kind of not. I'm kind of like a scattered cinephile, where it's like, oh yeah, I've seen that, that's phenomenal, and then it's like, well, have you ever seen like insert movie that everyone should have watched? And I'm like, no, I haven't. so I say it's like scattered cinephile.
But I guess for the next question, first off, do you drink any alcohol?
Oh yeah. I've got me like a breakfast Bloody Mary that I've been working on. So yeah.
So I guess what's your favorite alcoholic drink and non-alcoholic drink is for the next fun questions.
Let's see, non-alcoholic. I'll start with that. That's tough. I've definitely got a problem with drinking too many energy drinks, so I guess it's probably that. Lately I've been hooked on, like, there's like the peaches and cream monsters, and they got like the orange cream ones too. But alcoholic, it's probably this right here. I like Bloody Marys. That's something that started years ago. I've definitely got a history with alcoholic beverages. I used to drink a lot worse than I do now, but I mean, these days it's kind of like yeah, this keeps going back to like the religious thing, but here in the Bible Belt, a lot of people there's a lot of people that go to church. There's also a lot of people that go to church and don't think this way, but that like to demonize alcohol, which I think is just silly, because I think drunkenness, don't get shit-faced and act stupid. I've done it, I'll be honest. I've done that plenty of times. But, and these days I try to refrain from it and, just be like, enjoy a drink, just to enjoy it, not to get to act up. But I like Bloody Marys in particular. I've always been a fan of. I've got like this own personal touch where I put like a splash of pickle juice in them as a flavor enhancer. But and then like don't frequent liquor. I'm mostly a beer guy. And when it comes to beer, probably my most common go-to is probably Coronas. But I like to just about every Saturday after Great Vespers at my parish, I like going to the local Buffalo Wild Wings that I've been frequenting since high school, and just sit at the bar and enjoy a couple of Shiner Box or Yinglings. My taste in beer is actually all over the place, and I make the joke that it's because I'm both a country dude living in the South, and I was born in Germany, so I got the best of both worlds with genetics of people that really like beer. You know, the Germans, they got all those real, like, you know, they like their Hefeweizens or Weiss beers, you know, all those exotic things that here we consider exotic. And then here in the South, you know, every Southern boy likes a Coors Light, you know, stuff like that. So my taste in beer will range from those like mainstream light beers all the way up to like going to a German pub and being like, hey, pour me a tall Hefeweizen, or, you know, yeah, tasting beers all over the place. But when it comes to mixed drinks, definitely a Bloody Mary is, and I'm also fairly fond of, and not this ain't a mixed drink, but I'm fairly fond of Old Smoky's Mango Habanero whiskey from time to time.
I think I tried some of habanero, and that stuff was spicy as hell, to be honest. So I'll tell you that much.
Oh, the mango habanero?
I think what it was. It might have been a Jack Daniels, actually, now that I think about it. So.
Yeah, Jack makes like a Jack Fire, which is kind of like their version of, like, it's like their cinnamon whiskey, but the mango habanero, the Old Smoky, it's kind of sweet, and it has that habanero burn, but you give it like 30 seconds tops, and it just goes away. It's great.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I guess for lots of fun questions here, I guess, what's currently your favorite song or a song you've been listening to a good bit recently?
Kind of hard to narrow it down to a song, but my music fixes, I'll try to pronounce it correctly, they vary fairly often instead of varies. That's a word that confuses me, I don't know. But lately, like I said, I've been on a Creed fix a little bit. Like, that fix is sort of dying down, but I mean, still like Creed. There's a rock band that's been around since the late 90s called Cold. They had like one of their hit songs was this song called Stupid Girl, but they got a lot of good music. I've been fixed on them, and it's weird. Like, I can be fixed on like two totally different genres sometimes, because I've been listening to Batushka as well. There's only really one album in particular by them I like, because like that band, I got into them because like the guys, as far as I know, and the band aren't religious, but they like adopting like a Eastern Orthodox liturgy aesthetic to their musical sound because they think it's cool or whatever. But there's just one album in particular by them that I really like, it's called like I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, like Panhida or something. I know they use like a lot of church Slavonic, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, language in their music, but the band actually had like a split where one of the guys was like, hey, look at that, a band that's influenced by the Eastern Orthodox Church had its own great schism. But anyway, the band like split because one of the guys apparently was signed the band to Metal Blade Records behind the other guy's back, and the other guy didn't like it, so they had a feud. And now there's like two different Batushkas, because the other guy that didn't want to go to Metal Blade, that's like, hey, I don't want to get like, kind of, I guess like that advice I was talking about of not being in it for like fame and getting on a big label. Like the other guy that wasn't into that had continued making music under that project, like under that name by himself, and he released this album I'm talking about, and it's really good, like really good, great album. And it's I don't know, their style's like black metal with like this weird influence from like Orthodox liturgies, like it's like that type of aesthetic. So I've been listening to them a good bit, and then I don't know, like I said, it's I'll typically, when I go to the gym, it's like slam death metal and beat down, things like that. But I been listening to a little bit of black metal, and and I didn't start getting into black metal till this year, really, with, mostly with Christian bands, like Horde and Marble Tomb. Yeah, like I said, though, favorite song right now is a tough question. Favorite band right now, it's just probably either Cold or Matushka, which are like two totally different styles of music. But like my taste is everywhere. One of my favorite artists, admittedly, is Lana Del Rey. So I listen to stuff like that too. It's just, I got to the high school me, and maybe for a little while after was like a one genre only elitist, and now it's like I'll listen to whatever. Only thing that I can't really stand to listen to is like mainstream hip hop. But other than that, it's because that's like that style is like the pinnacle of what I was talking about, of making music for the money and fame. And it doesn't have substance. I don't think it does. It's,
It's all fair with Taylor Swift, that whole thing too. So I think that's a big thing these days. So I can see why. It's anathema, or I guess, hope I'm pronouncing the word right. It's forbidden. There we go. It's forbidden in the metal community. So
yeah.
But good choice nonetheless there too, mate. And Tyler, we breezed through the questions here pretty good. We're down to one last question, and I guess before we jump into it, did you have any questions for me, or any final words you want to say before we jump into it?
Well, for one, I appreciate you having me on. Like I usually, it's probably maybe only like the third podcast in general I've hopped on. So I like to talk. Admittedly, I think it's a personal character flaw, so I don't mind. But I'm trying to work on that. I'm sure over the next few months of being a catechumen in the Orthodox Church, the priest is going to probably be like, Tyler, you need to practice silence a little more. But it's for the best. But I don't know. I value this social interaction. I'm more of a people person than I used to be. So I like somebody hits me up, say, hey, I want to interview. I try not to. And I accidentally ignored you for a couple months just because I don't check the page's inbox as much as I should. But I'm more responsive on the page's Instagram or my personal Facebook. But yeah, I do appreciate it. I value the interaction. It's cool to get to meet you, and I know it's probably been more, because you're conducting the interviews, it's probably been more one way. but yeah, I appreciate you having me on. So you said you was this stuff always interests me. You said you was Irish Catholic.
Yep, born and raised. I'd say my dad, he's kind of backed away from being Catholic in general, and then, well, I'm still technically there, but they've had their philosophical differences, so technically believers still, but you can kind of see the whole reason why, because I know you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I don't know, like a lot of times, like I guess the church politics in a way kind of, I guess that's the right term, kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths.
Like a bad impression when you think about it too, but yeah. It's along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's, yeah. But, it's unfortunately you got that everywhere. Like, there's people that come, and like the Orthodox parish I go to, there's lots of inquirers. There's more and more. There's a lot of young Christian men in particular. There's women too, but men in particular are being drawn to the Orthodox Church, and they come in thinking, they get this belief, kind of like what I personally believe through the research I've done, things I've just experienced, like the peace that there, and just the change, the way that God's worked on me. I've just become personally a firm believer that the Orthodox Church is the apostolic church. And that's, it causes controversy. I know not everyone agrees, but, it's like, that's what I believe. But there's people that come into it. It's usually typically young men that are inquiring, that are Christians, and they come into it because they get drawn to it, and they get this idea, this church is perfect. This is the perfect church. They've got it all figured out. Like, the bishops and everyone just gets along. Nah, it's not how it works. Even there, and the priest at my parish, he'll tell people, like, I think one of the things that he said to somebody that I've overheard about was, he's like, the church is a family, and families have problems. So, yeah, like,
he's not lying.
Yeah. It's like, even, you're always going to have, like, drama in church politics. And like that movie, Man of God, that I was talking about, like, St. Nectarios is a prime example of a guy that really dealt with that. The patron saint of my parish, St. Tikhon of Moscow, he was the Russian patriarch of the Orthodox Church, and he reposed in, like, I think 1925. He had to deal with the onset of communist ideology in Russia, and the Russian Orthodox Church was heavily persecuted for many decades because of communism. And he was a man that did a lot of wonderful things, a great human being, St. Tikhon. I've been heavily considering, and I got probably a good year to make this decision, but I've been heavily considering just making him my patron saint when the time comes. And, but yeah, like, you can't get away from rough ecclesiastical political matters, no matter what kind of church you belong to, whether you're Baptist or Methodist or Roman Catholic, Pentecostal, Orthodox. Yeah, it's anytime you got an organization of people trying to run a show, or trying to run things right, you're going to have problems. It's just all part of it.
Yeah, that's for sure, you too. But if you don't have any questions, is it okay we jump into the last one?
Oh, yeah, sure. So don't mind me and my rabbit trails, for sure.
I think I might have one here for this one here, too, but here's how it goes. Given what COVID has done, obviously it seems you've been pretty blessed in a way, coming out of the darkness, spiritually speaking, in a manner. But I guess for those musicians and people who've been impacted by COVID or anything else in their lives, what sort of message of hope could you give to musicians and people out there as we try to move forward in a post-COVID world?
Let's see. Once again, I'm horrible at advice. But, it's always going to be a religious thing with me, you stay in prayer. But, yeah, I know a lot of people that aren't religious. No, I love them too, it's just hard for me to give advice when it comes to that, because I don't believe I've accomplished anything without the grace of God. So it's like, stay in prayer, and that's the best way. When you're doing that correctly, I guess it's best. You gotta. A lot of people, I guess, suck at advice. I'm sorry, but
Bloody Mary's starting to affect them too much now.
well, actually, usually that helps. But don't despair. Don't panic. It's so much easier said than done, and I don't know how to give any kind of tips on pulling through. Probably, but I've had my we're talking about, I think, like my struggles as a musician. I've had my share of holdups, and this was not particularly COVID, but I lost a lot of files in December of 2022, like while I was in the middle of working on album 3, and because I spilled a ramen cup on my laptop, and so like things like that happen. I had a horrible day. I was really in a bad mood, but things work out. I managed to recover a lot of what I've been working on. There's very little things that were really scrapped because I was fortunate to have made the wise decision to back up most of the album files prior to this. But even then, like, bad shit happens for a reason. Sometimes those things that are complete holdups, complete snares in the path of what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's in your musical life or something else, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes, even if you got to start from scratch, your final product could be 10 times better than what you were previously working on. Like, sometimes, like, sometimes you'll overwork yourself. I have a couple albums right now from side projects that are sitting in limbo because that incident with the laptop, I lost all of the files, but I still had like the song files backed up. And I came to this realization, well, after that incident, I'm like, I didn't need to work on this album anymore. It's already done as is, things like that happen. Like I said, I'm terrible at advice. Like, I jump around on rabbit trails just trying to figure out what I should say to people. But stay in prayer. It's I apologize because I know that I have fans of my music that are like atheists, agnostics, that not don't believe in Christ, and I don't judge them. It's like that's their thing to figure out. I love these people. I've got a lot of secular followers who are really cool people that have even have even promoted my music because they loved it. And I'm grateful for that. I don't want to adhere to just an audience of Christian metalheads, but I do apologize because, like, I'm a very religious guy, so that's about the only premise I got for giving any advice. But stay in prayer as much as possible. Submit yourself to Christ. Don't let other things that really in the long run don't matter distract you, and everything else just falls into place. I mean, I've been just nonstop busy since I've started going to an Orthodox church, since I started my path into the Eastern Orthodox faith, which I will probably, looks like next year I'll probably be baptized into. But I've been nonstop busy, but I've been great, and things work out. I I don't know if that's great advice. I don't know if that comes across professionally, but yeah, that's all I can say is just stay in prayer and submit to Christ, and you take one step towards Him, and He tends to take 1,000 steps in your direction.
Sort of like a true prodigy. And don't worry about the advice too. I mean, everyone's got their sort of advice too. I've interviewed a good number of people who have done like the Christian metal sort of scene there too. So it's along those lines as well. So
yeah,
it's all good. All right. So Tyler, we reached the end of my podcast right here. We're just about to cross about 2 hours here into this, but I guess it's been a damn good interview. But I guess you got any final words, any shout outs you want to give before we close? I know you gave some shout outs earlier.
Oh yeah. Sure thing. For sure. I mentioned Zach from Glay, and he has a podcast that, and I don't know, I've not caught up with him on it. I've been on a couple of his episodes, but it's been probably last year. It's called Glaycast, so shout out Zach and his solo project Glay, GLAE, and his podcast Glaycast. Chris from Hard Look. Hard Look's kind of great, like industrial deathcore project, and he's got that I've been meaning to look into. I've just been so busy with other things. He's got a podcast himself called the Hard Word Podcast. Seth from Mangled Carpenter to Broken Curfew Records, which is his record label. Involuntary Mortification, their vocalist Connor, who's a friend of mine. List goes on. I could do shout outs forever. I'm not going to lie. But
it's like all the shots for those guys, and then all the fans and all the other groups out there too.
Yeah, it's just like a long list, But just love those guys. Try to love everybody, I really try to, as a guy that used to be really hateful. But that's definitely any last advice I could give. Definitely try to do the exact same, no matter what you believe. I know from firsthand experience, don't waste your life on hate, because there's people out there that'll look at somebody and just have hate for them over the pettiest reasons. Don't live your life like that. Learn to love and learn to be selfless about that. Learn to be be a selfless person. There's my final little bit of wonderful advice, which is hard for even me to do, I'll admit. But I'm a pretty horrible sinner myself. But
aren't we all? All right. That's
yeah.
All right. So everyone, my guest today was Tyler Johnson. He's hailing from Georgia. He's part of the slam metal band Resurrected Divinity. Just go hit him up on the socials. Go check him out on all the stream platforms and everything too. Bandcamp, all that sort of stuff right there too. Go help a brother out right there too. So Tyler, I want to wish you all the best going forward on your journey right there, mate. So you stay safe. Rock on. Stay tuned, y'all.
You as well. Appreciate you having me on.